And we're back on the Psychedelic Art Exchange YouTube channel. Welcome back, everyone. We're looking forward to discussing some super interesting rock and roll music ephemera with you today, as always. Everything that we're about to look at comes from our current specialty auction, which is called the Psychedelic Rock Handbill Bonanza, so brilliantly titled by us. And it's open until Sunday, March 1st at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We got lots of little tiny things to look at. There's some posters in the auction as well, but it's specifically very handbill heavy, but don't let that deter you because the handbills and cards and stuff are really very cool and very rare. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, everybody loves the big sexy posters, but there's a lot more, intrigue in the smaller items, and especially for these smaller items from the Grandy Ballroom in Detroit, Michigan. These are the ones that really kind of popped out at me because, they're so authentic, they're so early, they're so real, and I've never seen one of these before. This is our lead item. Free pass to the Grandy Ball.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's you can see the ink splotch on it. I believe it was probably done by Gary Grimshaw, but
Mm-hmm.
there's there's not easy to find all of the details of some of this material, but this is tickets and small things that really shouldn't have survived haven't, and this is something that it's worth. If you're a collector of the Grandy, I think this would be something to focus on. Now, those of you unfamiliar with the Grandy Ballroom, it was Detroit's rock and roll place. It
Mm-hmm.
in the '60s. It opened in October of '66, and it represented the city from which it came. It had a harder edge. It was it was a lot more distorted and and hard rock than the San Francisco thing. A great part of that is due to I guess, the house band, which is the MC5, the Motor
Mm-hmm.
City Five, which are legendary. Whenever we get a chance to talk about the MC5, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So, and they performed it like it's probably 70% of the Grandy post on Grandy performances and showed up on
Yeah.
many of the posters. Now the
They
Grandy
were that, yeah, the house band, I guess, technically. And they also recorded their album, their very famous album, Kick Out the Jams, live at the Grandy.
one of the greatest albums. It's just a sonic boom, and
Yeah.
and they were raw power, and they were very representative of of their urban scene. But anyhow, so the two handbills that I want to show you, or flyers, the 8x10s are generally flyers, handbills are
Hmm.
cards. It's a little bit muddy, and but we try to do the best we can to describe them. But these pieces were designed by Rob Tyner, who was the singer for the MC5, and they're very cartoony, kind of Mad Magazine. I mean, they're white photocopies.
Hmm.
Yeah, they show up very early in the series, though. They were number 7 and 8. It was uh, November and December of '66.
66. Yeah.
So this was the beginning of it all, and the MC5. I mean, my favorite story anecdote about the MC5 is that they played at the Lincoln Park protests in Chicago at the Democratic Convention in '68 and ran out of there with their lives.
I think they might have been the only musical act that actually ended up performing because it turned into a riot and everything went haywire. But like, I think like Neil Young was there and maybe supposed to play. But yeah, it was the MC5 and they got freaked out and yeah, all went crazy.
Yeah,
That is good though.
I recently saw that film about the Chicago Seven. It was
Mhm.
really pretty good, and it was really scumbaggery by the John Mitchell of the Justice Department. It was It's a really good film. And it's worth seeing if you're into this history and how this all went down. But again, the MC5 were at the center of all that. And yeah, these
Yeah, and I mean, those are so cool. Again, yeah, Rob Tyner, he designed a number of Grandy items. I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly how many, but they're very unique compared to, the direction that the art kind of went into, which was more like the San Francisco psychedelic stuff. It sort of reminds me of like what punk art became a bit later on, which is, that's just what the MC5 were. They were proto punk. They were punk before punk was a thing, and that shows up in the artwork too, which is very cool.
yeah, the thread from them to well, and Iggy,
Hmm.
this was what was happening in Detroit, and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean there's the clear connection. But yeah, so the grant most of the posters were done by Gary Grimshaw and Carl Lundgren. The posters were not made for every show. There were a lot more postcards.
Hmm.
The posters themselves weren't printed in high quantity. They're some of the rarest, best designed, on the level with the San Francisco material in every way, but it had its own thing, its own
Hmm.
vibe. So yeah, I mean, I this stuff is amazing and scarce. And here we have a couple of pieces from San Francisco, and these are really, really pulpy. And this stuff is definitely hasn't survived in great quantity. This is Bill Graham after the Fillmore closed. This is 73, but he still kept going. You look at some of the acts on these. We have Neil Young with Nils Lofgren. That's amazing. You have the Dead, Allman Brothers in 73. It's these pieces just pop up in collections from time to time, and I don't know why they exist or how they exist, but they're here.
Yeah, those ones are rare. I don't think we'd sold those before. There's a lot of those like Randy Tootin designed calendar handbills from, I guess, a little bit later on, but these are very rare.
Yeah, and again, the artists on them are amazing. So if you're a
Hmm.
completist with the whole Bill Graham story, this is something to look at. Yeah, again, there's so much more that seems to pop up in the smaller items, just because printing a poster wasn't always viable or economical. So the smaller stuff, you really got to keep an eye on it and really look closely. It's not, again, that colorful or designed, but it really shows its place in the history. So yeah, take a look at these handbill sales and the small piece sales, because they're really, if you want to learn about the history of rock and roll in the 60s, this is a good place.
And if you're a poster collector, your walls are already probably covered in posters, and you might have more space for the little things. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, everybody has their own view on collecting, and we're not here to
Hmm.
tell people what to collect, because you find your own way, your own path. That's the beautiful thing about it. Everybody looks at this differently. So, but
Something for everyone.
yeah, but I like the stuff that I haven't seen. That
Yeah.
I've seen. So anyhow, that's the story.
Well, thank you as always for joining us. And yeah, go ahead and bid in the specialty auction. It's the Psychedelic Rock Handbill Bonanza, and all of the links are going to be in the description. And I'll also link some of the other videos where we talk about the MC5 and the Detroit items, because, we didn't want to like go too much into stuff we've talked about a whole lot already, but that story's great and it's one of our favorites to tell. And you should definitely keep an eye on those handbills, because they're not coming back anytime soon. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.